So you have some time. I'm going to explain why a court of appeals blocked yet another Bondi appointed lawyer from being an assistant United States attorney. Now, this video is going to be receipt proof for those who follow me. I am JJ Legal. I'm in the dockets and have been for a year reporting on lawsuits filed related to the Trump administration. And I just wanted to get this out because every time I try to do a receipt packed video, it just gets delayed. And just anyway, if you don't believe me, you don't trust what I have to say, you can Google it, look it up for yourself or whatever. Doesn't matter. So here's the thing. So Alina Habba was determined by a judge in New Jersey that she wasn't properly assigned. Similarly, the way that Lindsay Halligan last week was determined was not properly assigned either. Lindsay Halligan had never prosecuted a case in her life. She was a federal prosecutor. She was an insurance attorney, and before that, she was like a reality TV show star, and before that, I think she was a beauty pageant queen. But she was the only person who was willing to indict Letitia James and James Comey. Everyone else who had their credibility and knew that they had to, save face after this administration's out, chose not to, even after a memo was written by a Department of Justice lawyer who was later fired that said there's no basis for this prosecution indictment whatsoever. She made so many mistakes, but I'll get to that later. Similarly, Bill Asai also was temporarily appointed by Pam Bondi in Los Angeles and Sigal Chattah in Nevada. What happened was Donald Trump just found these loyalists who just loyal to him, have no experience whatsoever. It's so interesting because they're so against DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and in their mind that means unqualified people of color are given jobs they're not qualified for. Yet Donald Trump has routinely his entire cabinet and every single person that's been destroying the country. The reason why they're destroying the country, they have no qualifications. Look what Pete Hegseth is doing. Look at RFK Jr. Look at Kash Patel. Nobody in his cabinet who's in high-level positions know what the freak they're doing. All their qualifications are just being loyal to Donald Trump. Not talking about DEI. All right. I digress once more. Anyway, so Bill Asai determined not to be properly formed. All of those Pam Bondi appointed because she has the authority to do it in temporary. The process for getting an AUSA is more complex and involves Congress because this is an attorney that's going to be representing the United States in front of the Supreme Court, in front of perhaps international courts. So we don't just give this job to anybody just because they're loyal to Donald Trump. So the temporary assignments ran out, but even though they ran out, these folks continued to sign indictments. They continued to work. And so the judges and the people who they were indicting, of course, went to the judges and be like, who the hell is this person? They're not even legally qualified. And the judges were like, yeah, you're right. They've been kicking them out left and right. Now, as to Lindsay Halligan, she not only was she not properly informed, and the reason why they dropped it is it was totally botched. The most funniest thing is seeing KKK Caroline go before reporters and say that Lindsay Halligan was extremely qualified. How can you, I'm surprised her cross didn't burst into flame on her neck to say that woman was extremely qualified for the job. She said the judge that disqualified her was a partisan judge. Listen, there have been judges appointed by Trump himself, Ronald Reagan, and George W. Bush that have been ruling against this administration since January 20, 2025, routinely, because they don't follow the law. They don't follow the process. And that is what's going to happen. If they appeal this to the Supreme Court, this man is on his way out. So I don't understand why you deciding to toss aside your credibility to keep allowing him to do things that is unlawful. He's violating the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 8th Amendment. He violates this thing called the Administrative Procedure Act. He violates this concept of ultra vires, meaning that he's exceeding his authority. He violates the balance of power. He takes congressionally allocated funds that had already been distributed and approved upon and granted to universities, to cities for infrastructure projects, to nonprofit organizations, and he seizes them and impound them. He has this person named Russell Vogt, who is his Office of Management Budget, and that's one of the first things they need to do when we would come back in power, remove the ability from the Office of Management Budget to be able to revoke grants independently. Just take that ability all the way from that office. It can never longer be housed an office executive. It needs to be some sort of joint thing. So there'll never be someone like a Russell Vogt that can do what he's been doing, essentially hold funds off and requiring the people to have to sue to get the funds released. It's just a piece of freaking pain in the ass. He's one of those people that definitely need to be called up and sent to jail for his job because he did it the last time, and the Republicans in the Senate voted this man back in after he essentially thumbed his nose in their appropriations and impounded funds, just like he did last time, and they voted him again. So shame on the Republicans in the Senate. Again, I digress. So back to Lindsay Halligan. So she botched it up, because what she did was actually, not just did she do a poor job because she didn't know what she was doing, she committed prosecutorial misconduct. She presented a 3-count indictment to the jury, and the jury rejected it. They didn't sign the bill. So what she did was she went and edited, just wrote it in herself, and 7 minutes later came to the four-person, and said, look, this is what I have. And the 4-person and 1 juror said, okay, and they signed it. Perhaps they were tired. They know she didn't present it. And that's, again, to the judge, to the jury. She didn't present the new indictment with the 2-count indictment. That 7-minute lapse is what drew the concern of the judge and the concern of the Comey's investigative defense team, and say, what the hell is going on? The judge asked her to sign a declaration to explain that 7 minutes, like, what the hell is going on with that? And she said, oh, that was just a gap because me and the court reporter went out inside, and it was nothing. It was okay, cool. She didn't sign her name to that declaration. She didn't do the portion that says, I, Lindsay Halligan, swear under penalty of perjury. Either she didn't do it because she knew she was lying and she knew that could come back to haunt her, or she just didn't know, because, again, like I said, she's never prosecuted a federal case in her life, so she may not have known that was something she was supposed to do. So that, of course, all of this, in addition to the fact that there were misspellings, there was errors, she had to get a couple of AUSAs from another state, like from the South, to come up to help her. The judge was like, this is highly unusual. So because of that, I'm going to let the Comey team actually look at the transcripts. When they looked at the transcripts and looked all sorts of stuff, they were like, this woman didn't even present the case. And so they had a hearing, and she admitted, yeah, I didn't present the case. So even if it wasn't the fact that she wasn't properly assigned and properly appointed, they would have tossed that for her prosecutorial misconduct. That was a mess. And then they might have also tossed it because there's this thing called vindictive prosecution. That's a defense that both Letitia James and James Comey had both already alleged. That was on the docket. That was on diasis. That was next. And there's a high bar. However, we do know that Kilmer Obregón Garcia, who's a Maryland man, had already met that hard bar in Tennessee when they brought him back, because all 9 justices of the United States Supreme Court, Judge Paula Jean of Maryland, and had told them to bring that man back. And finally, they had to put their tail between their legs and brought him back, not before they went to Tennessee and coerced the DA in Tennessee to make up some chumped up charges and turn a routine traffic stop that man had in 2000, I don't know, whatever, like 3 years ago, and say that traffic stop was a human smuggling. He was just taking some coworkers to work. And they said, yeah, they went and got, listen to how messed up this is, they went and got 2 jailbirds that he knew out of jail, who were actually in jail for human smuggling, related to each other, to make up a story and say, yeah, he was smuggling these people, like he was doing that 70 days a week. And the judge was like, ain't no humanly way possible this man could have done this 70 days a week. Not only do y'all not have credibility because both of y'all are human smugglers, one of them had been kicked out of the country 4 times. Y'all had no credibility, and your story don't even make sense. So what the hell? Anyway, so that's the type of shoddy workmanship that this damn administration does. That's I'm going to do another video later on. Stay tuned. Going through all the different ways they've fabricated evidence. They've lied under oath. They've lied. They submitted falsely declarations. They like jerked around the judges and things like that, and just said things, obfuscated, delayed, just blatantly lied, just make up all sorts, hide evidence. Just it's a mess. The amount of corruption, the amount of like openly, easily found about corruption. It's not like. Anyway, again, I digress. Let me tell you something. You're gonna have to get this. Support my work. Get my I Digress sweatshirt, my I Digress cap from jjlegal.com. This video is sponsored by that. Anyway, back to the video. So whenever you hear those guys calling judges activists or partisan, it's because those judges have determined that the Trump administration does not care about process. There's a specific process for AUSAs. They didn't follow it. Just like before they can revoke someone's temporary protective status, you have to give 60 days notice, and you have to have lots of proof that these, whatever the condition is in the country that was the cause for them getting TPS is now dissipated. They don't do that. Before you hire probationary employees, you have to make sure that the probationary employee on an individual by individual basis failed to do their job. They didn't do that. They just fired them bulk. Before you revoke a grant, whether it's an infrastructure grant for the blue sanctuary cities, or whether it's a grant to a university, a grant to a research institution, a clean energy grant, or a grant that's promoting something that's against your ideology, it has to be actually based on independent analysis. You have this whole process that requires giving them a chance. It's like a months-long process for revoke the grants. They were just revoking grants. So when people sued and they got the grants back, they don't follow process. They never follow process. And that's why when people sue, they lose. The end. That's it. It had nothing to do with activism. It's like we have laws. It's been 254 years they built this country. Y'all don't want to follow the laws and then get mad when people call you on it. Stupid administration. JJ Legal. Each one teach one. I hope that was helpful. Let's comment below. Share this video so people know.